Hey guys, what's going on? Month 3 of the light dumbbell training system as prescribed by Eugene Sandow. There is a similar system by a guy named Professor Tilla, who is actually his mentor, but I'm doing Eugene Sandow's system. First off, who was Eugene Sandow? Well, Eugene Sandow was a German Bronze Era strongman who was famed for his feats of strength, like the horse walking across the plank. I think they called it the Tomb of Hercules, just having horses being able to walk over you while in a crab walk position, lift extremely heavy barbells above his head. The guy had a great physique, and he was really the father of modern bodybuilding. He was the first guy to really take the physique component of doing various poses, kind of making that a thing. And he actually got paid handsomely in those days for posing for artists so that they could be able to draw out the various muscles of the body.
It is a very rare diamond. Jack, I want you to draw me like one of your French girls, wearing this.
All right.
Wearing only this.
There was other guys who also had great physiques from the Bronze Era, like Bobby Pandora and Billy Ralph, among a plethora of others that I just don't want to go through right now because there's so many of them. I haven't really put on any increased mass as far as I can tell. I didn't really have a way to measure myself, seeing that I didn't have a scale in the first couple of months, but I'm guessing that I started roughly around 220. So a lot of this information is going to be anecdotal, but I can say for a fact that within the first month of doing this as a novice lifter, and certainly not an intermediate to advanced guy, I've put on mass. I've increased my muscular endurance. By the end of 6 months, this will be a video among a series of videos that I'll be releasing in the days to come. But I can say that if you are a novice lifter, you certainly have potential to put on some initial newbie gains using this type of training. Let me go into a little bit of detail about how this training is supposed to work. This is not trying to overcome weights in the traditional sense of weight training. The idea with light dumbbell training is that the weight isn't really something that you're trying to overcome. It just sort of acts as an aid of helping you to focus on contracting that muscle. So if I'm doing simultaneous crucifix curls and I got a weight in this hand here and I got that leverage acting against my muscle, what I'm trying to do is focus on contracting that agonist muscle that's going to cause my forearm to come towards my head while I'm squeezing that dumbbell. Eugene Sandow actually had specially made dumbbells that he ended up producing because a lot of people didn't really understand the underlying concept of the training. So he had these specially made dumbbells that were two halves that were separated from each other that you would have to squeeze a series of springs down, producing anywhere from like 5 to 10 pounds of force in order to close the weight and curl it. That's one thing to keep in mind. There's actually a book called The Lost Secret to a Great Body. It talks about the watch training protocol. It's weight-assisted total contraction hypertrophy. That's a mouthful, but that's actually a pretty good way to summarize up the whole idea behind this type of training. So, as you'll see here, I'm doing the curls. So when I do the curls, I'm really focusing on contracting the bicep when I'm doing this. Eugene Sandow does call for each rep to be roughly a second long, sort of a steady rhythm. One of the things, as you're going through these curls, fatigue is going to accumulate. I try not to take any more longer than 1 minute worth of rest. I'm focusing on the bicep, and I'm just trying to curl it as hard as I can. I try to keep the antagonist muscle, which in this case would be the triceps, relaxed, and focus solely on contracting the bicep. Well, moving on, we have the reverse curls. As you can see, it's just sort of
It's a reverse curl.
No shit.
I feel this a lot in my forearm. I certainly still feel it in my biceps, but there starts to become some forearms and brachialis engagement here. Again, while you're doing each of these series of curls, you really want to focus on squeezing that dumbbell. That's really what's, I think, going to make it that much more intense. Something else I should mention while you're doing the curls and every other exercise within this is to breathe. And that's actually going to help you fight against the lactate buildup. A lot of people call it lactic acid. You actually don't get lactic acid in your muscles. It's lactate. Now, one of the things about lactate, according to Andrew Huberman, is that it will actually help you to extend your reps, especially if you combine it with oxygen, which is why you want to breathe when you start to feel that burn building up, that build of lactate. It's going to help you be able to bang out more reps. Moving along, we have alternating crucifix curl. I try to be careful with and really keep my shoulder girdle engaged while doing them because I have felt like a little bit of crunching going around in my shoulders while doing it, and that's not a very good feeling. I really try to focus on keeping my lat and my shoulder and everything sort of locked while the arm just does most of the motion. That's one thing to sort of keep in mind, is just to be careful with your shoulders. Don't have particularly great shoulder health, so I do have to be mindful about that when doing alternating crucifix curls or simultaneous crucifix curls like shown here. Again, while you're doing this exercise, you're just really trying to focus on contracting the bicep, really try to keep the antagonist muscles relaxed, and just focus on curling the bicep as hard as you can. I think that's essentially just the thought process under every workout that you do within this series of workouts is focusing on the agonist muscle. That's going to be the muscle that's doing the concentric portion of the lift. Moving right along, we have what are called the Pec Flies. Again, each rep should be roughly around a second or so. This one might take a little more than a second maybe with each rep. Don't swing your arms back as hard as you can, but spread your arms out like you're spreading your wings. Keep your arms up and erect. You will feel this in your shoulders, maybe a little bit in your lats and your back, but mainly I've felt this in my shoulder. There's a lot of your shoulder engagement going on. I try to squeeze as hard as I can when I come up to the front on that portion right there where you come toward the front there. I feel like that does hit the chest a little bit. Moving right along, the dumbbell press. We know what a dumbbell press is. Again, I try to just focus on squeezing the agonist muscles while doing this. So in this case, it would be the shoulders and the triceps. When doing these types of alternating exercises, something I really try to think about doing is counting each side as one. It's like 1, 1, 2, 2. That's the counting scheme that I use. So if I did 50, I'm thinking I did 100 because I did 2 movements on each of those workouts. Moving right along will be the front raise. I feel particularly strong with the front raise. I actually feel more fatigue with the dumbbell raise than I do with the front raise. I kind of just go through the motions on this one. I still really try to focus on engaging my shoulders and focusing on the agonist muscle, working to lift the weight, relaxing the antagonist muscles while doing this workout. Moving along, the dumbbell wrist circles. So with the dumbbell wrist circles, I do decrease the weight. I feel it's better to err on the side of caution. I use the 10-pound dumbbells now, but if I'm doing these, I drop down to the 8s for this particular exercise. And then once I move on to these, the end of dumbbell wrist circles, I use the 5-pound dumbbells. So the orange ones are the 8s. These black ones right here are 5-pound dumbbells. Don't want to stress the ligaments of my wrist. I get good forearm pumps, and I've gotten a little bit of forearm definition doing these. For the forearms, you will feel it along the brachialis and just other parts of your forearm. It's a really great forearm exercise, but I recommend staying with a lighter weight. If you're built like me, I'm not a particularly big-boned guy. Given I'm 6'1", I'm 235 pounds, but I'm not built like, let's say, Brock Lesnar, particularly large bone structure. Like, my bone structure is not that massive, so I keep it light with the wrists. Like there's a lot of pinch points with the wrist, so I stick with light weights. Moving right along, the boxer punch-out. There is a variation where you step out and you do it like a classical military drill where it's almost like if you were putting out your rifle to do a blocker. I don't really bother just stepping out. I just pivot on my foot like I'm throwing a punch, and I really feel it in my shoulders. Moving along, do it the opposite way. I go right and then I do the left. You can do it however you want to do it. That's just how I do it. You'll be on push-ups. I wait a minute in between every workout, and after doing the dumbbell punch outs, I do feel some fatigue in my shoulders, so I wait about a good solid minute, maybe just a little bit longer before I do the push-ups. I really try to focus on contracting my arms towards each other. Even though I'm pressing up, I'm focusing on this sort of contraction right here as I come up. And I like to use the push-up bars because I can go deeper. I get more range of motion, and I just feel like that helps me to engage a broader range of muscle fiber recruitment in my chest when doing that. Next will be the banded push-up, but I generally hit anywhere between 7 to 9. I haven't really been able to increase reps on this one too much, but I go to failure. So if I'm going to failure, I'm doing something. Yeah. It is what it is. I don't know. For me, I haven't been able to increase the reps every 2 to 3 days on this one. I feel like this one is going to be just over a longer period of time that I can increase reps. It's consistency. We have the deep knee bend. I really try to focus on staying on the balls of my feet. Honestly, I don't have the literature. I'm just sort of taking this at face value of how I've seen the exercise performed. You could probably go back on your heels if you wanted to do it like that, but I personally like to go on down to the balls of my feet and keep my heels kind of raised off the floor. And I spread my knees apart to the sides, and I just hold the dumbbells out of the sides on the outsides of my feet when doing this. And I feel that a lot in my calves when I come up, and also in my quads. And then when I come up to the top of the movement, you can see I'm doing a little calf raise there. This is a deep knee bend to a calf raise. So you're sort of combining 2 different leg exercises into one. It's a little bit strange looking, very old school. I can imagine they probably did this with heavier weights as well. I feel it sufficiently enough just using the light dumbbell. The next exercise is going to be the sit-up. I like using the heavier dumbbells for this one now. I started off with the 5-pound dumbbells. Now I'm using the 8s. I like to use the dumbbells as sort of a counterforce to act against my abs so that I get a better, contraction while going up. I've actually gotten a little bit of ab definition doing this, and it works my abs rather well. And the last exercise will be the alternating dumbbell side bend. This one, it's pretty fairly simple to do. There's not a whole lot going into it. I really do try to focus on contracting my obliques and just my sides in general. But I do feel it when I'm crunching down, if I really focus on contracting the muscles as I do this, I do feel it. I still try to incorporate my breathing and sort of keep the build of lactate down, but I think most people are generally going to be able to go to 100 reps off the muscle, no pun intended, when doing this exercise. So that's essentially all the exercise right there. What to expect. If you're a beginner, you're going to put on some mass. You're going to build your muscular endurance. If you're an intermediate to an advanced lifter, this would be solely supplementary. I think for newbies like me, there's just the initial benefit of putting on mass, building your muscular endurance. What are other potential benefits of doing this system?
Nucleus Overload.
Megan from Team 3D Alpha turned me on to the idea of Nucleus Overload, and it really has to do with acquiring new satellite cells.
As far as Nucleus Overload
goes, if you want to find more content about that, I recommend going to Megan's channel. It's Team 3D Alpha, or you can just
search up Nucleus Overload.
I'm pretty sure a bunch of his content is going to pop up there, probably some of Golden Air bookworms as well. Essentially, all it is if you're training the same group of muscles often enough and frequent enough, they're going to incorporate new satellite cells to help deal with the stressors of repeated use. The idea is that the more satellite cells that you end up acquiring, the more potential it's going to create for you to put on mass and strength. I'm still kind of learning about that. So go check that out if you want to. It's certainly been a discipline for me to do this consistently. I'm going to start trying to do this earlier in the morning because there is a time constraint with this taking about an hour, and it takes away, time for my wife or time for me being able to work on other projects that I'm sort of juggling around right now. There's a lot of advantages and disadvantages to it. Because you're not lifting heavier, you're not going to really build strength. You're not going to build tendon strength doing this type of training. I'm pretty sure it was a supplementary form of training for Eugene Sandow and Bobby Pandora and other Bronze Era greats. Certainly wasn't the only type of training they did, to be able to lift extremely heavy weights and men in baskets and have horses walking across their stomach while they're in a crab walk position doing the Tomb of Hercules. It's not the all-in, be-all. It's just one of the many different systems of training that you can employ. Once I hit the 6-month mark, I am kind of looking forward to hopping off of it, but I made a commitment for y'all, so I'm going to stick to it. That's all I really have to share for now. So until next time, y'all take it easy, take care of yourself so you can take care of those around you and keep your head up.